Michael Ortmann, November 22nd, born 1949. Lamar's, Iowa. I was the oldest of 6 children. I have 2 sisters and 3 brothers. Grew up on a farm about 3 miles east of Remsen. Went to a Catholic school there, Remsen St. Mary's. Graduated in 1968. I said, well, I grew up on a farm, just we had chickens, hogs, cattle, raised crops, row crops, and baled hay. And in the summertime, I did a lot of baling. Well, the draft was going on, but then they had what they called the lottery system. And for my 18th birthday, my number was 13, if I remember correctly. So I figured, well, riding the waves, being in the Navy, enlisting in the Navy for 4 years was better than pounding the rice paddies for 3 years. So, but then I ended up over in Vietnam anyhow. The very end of '69, I went in right after Christmas, between Christmas and New Year's. 33 years total, 28 of which counted for. They give you a choice of 5 different things, and one of them was to be a cook. That was the last one because I had been in the service, and I mean, when I was going to school in Omaha, I worked at a restaurant, and so they saw that, they just plugged me in as a cook. It was all right. I enjoyed it. After boot camp, I went to cook school, and after cook school, I thought I wanted to be on submarines because my dad always said the submarines always ate better than everybody else. So, but that didn't work out so good. I had some problems they give you a pressure test, to simulate going under. Well, the next morning I woke up bleeding out of both my ears. So that kind of put an end to that. They walked you through all the different jobs that there were, job descriptions there were in the Navy. Basically, it's to learn how to take orders. That's plain and simple. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's it with any basic or boot camp. It's just when you're given an order, you do it. And some of it's redundant, yeah, but it's just to learn to take orders. You're cooking for large numbers, put it that way. And there's recipe cards. You learn how to follow a recipe card. The basic recipe card for the military, any of the branches of the military, was 100 people. And then you go in multiples of that, or if it's like, what is it, destroyers didn't have as many, then you break it down, Adding, supplying, multiplying, division is pretty simple. But my favorite probably was they had a cake recipe, it was called Easy Chocolate Cake. And it was the moistest cake recipe anywhere. I don't even hear now, there is no cake recipe that's as moist as that stayed moist. Well, first you had to go to a survival training school in Little Creek, Virginia. Got over to Vietnam. My parent command was a place called Na Bay. And then after I was there about 3-4 months, then I got shipped out to what they call the fast attack base by Phuoc Nguyen. All I know is we were 10 miles from the Cambodian border. I can tell you that much. So we were out western South Vietnam. December of 70, I guess you could say. Na Bay was a support unit for swift boats and PT boats. They were fiberglass hulled, and so there was a lot of when ships were damaged or hit or whatever, they were brought into Na Bay for being repaired, and we supplied. I know when I was out at Phuoc Nguyen, there was 27 of us Americans, and the rest were Vietnamese on that base. That base was along what they called the Grand Canal. And during monsoon season, it raised up and flooded over. So the base was on barges and catwalks. 7 watchtowers, 4 of them were manned 24/7. Like I said, we were right along the Grand Canal, so the barges was what we lived on, we cooked on, and like that. And so when the monsoon season hit, well, before monsoon season, the barges were kind of down like that. And then when it rained, they leveled out. And so that's the way life was. During Tet, all 7 were manned, 24/7. Everybody stood watches then. And you definitely did not want to be caught sleeping. And each watchtower had a 50 caliber gun in it, and I had never shot a 50 before. I had shot some 30s, and I knew what they were like, but then when we were up in the watchtower, they said, go ahead and shoot it so you get familiar with it. So, yeah, they are something else to... Well, out Fuchswin, there was just 3 of us cooks, so we did all 3 meals. Basic cooking, we had what is called field ranges, and you could fry, you could bake, you could cook, you could, let's see, we never did any broiling with them, but just about anything you could do on a stove, we could do on those field ranges. There has somebody from the Stars and Stripes came visiting us one time, and he wanted to see what the daily routine was there on the base. So when those cooks got up, he got up, and we fried some Spam and scrambled eggs that morning for everybody. I just happen to remember that. I know that. Each one of us took turns, and out of the 7-8 months that I was out at Fuchswin, we would take one of us. We got to go once each into Saigon for about a week, 4 days of 4 or 5 days of R&R, something like that. There was a lot of Americans on the base, but then there was a lot of Vietnamese sailors. That's when the Vietnamization process was going on, and we were in the process of turning everything over to the Vietnamese. Just the sheer numbers. You've got so many that you cook for, so you're allowed so much per person per day for rations. Well, since we had so many, we had steak like 3 times a week. Every Sunday we grilled steaks for the crew. Otherwise it was like Swiss steak or minute steaks or something like that. Always rice in some shape or form, or probably twice a week we had fried rice. So the grill that I cooked the steaks on was probably as long as this room is.
Wow.
And it was about this wide, and how many steaks would be on there at a time? Oh my gosh, a couple hundred steaks at one time. And we didn't do medium rare, medium well. It was well, medium, or rare. That was the 3 choices they give the guy. So, and I'd have to know how long I put them on and stuff like that. So I did 1 year in country in Vietnam first, and then I was on the ship for another tour off the coast. Then I come back to the States. I got attached to VA-196. It was a fighter jet. They were like married to the Enterprise. When the Enterprise went out, that squadron went out. And so they were based out of Whidbey Island, Washington. So I got sent up there, got flown down to the Enterprise, which was based on, I think, out of Alameda at that time, and go with them and then set sail. It was supposed to be a 9-month cruise, and it ended up being a 12-month cruise for whatever reasons I don't remember at the time. I do know that at one time on our way back, we got a distress call from an oil tanker, and we were the closest ship, my gosh, I'm going to say like 12 hours, almost 12 hours away. And since we were the closest one, it was our duty to go get them. And I'll never forget, because we were just, sailing along. We were in the kitchen cooking in our steam jacket kettles, and all of a sudden, the steam jacket kettles started vibrating. So we knew we were picking up speed. I mean, when I say vibrate, they would actually vibrate. And then we started listing. The listing is the list, to one side or the other. There's what they call port and starboard for duty rosters. If once you left port, it was decided by whoever the powers, the ship's captain, whoever. Port has day duty, and let's see, port and starboard has night duty. It was 12-hour shifts, on and on. You know, you pulled into port, then the cook. It was kind of good duty for cooks then, because you took your port and starboard and then you split them in half. So you would have, like say, if you were in port for 10 days, and okay, the port 1 and port 2, port 1 had cooking duties, and all the other 3 sections were off. On the Enterprise, there was only a half an hour out of a 24-hour cycle period that you could not get something to eat. There was two kitchens, one forward and one aft. The aft one did regular meals, cooked meals, like at home. The other one, the forward one, would be like short order cooking. 5,000, roughly, when the whole air wing is on the ship. I never ever got seasick. We got in on a tail end of a typhoon once that literally, when we were in our bunk, rolled us over in our bunk. We got tossed around that much. I mean, a big aircraft carrier. My dad was killed in a farm accident the day before we were pulling in port. Well, I got a hardship discharge when we got back. I was in and out of the Navy Reserve for 20 years. E6, and I hit 24 years, and so I couldn't stay any longer. And so I was, what the heck can I do? And one of the guys in our group said, well, he says, go down to the 185th. He said, they'll take you. So I did, and they did, and I really enjoyed it there. I couldn't do just 14 months. This would be a 6-year enlistment. So, all right, if that's what I got to do, that's what I got to do. Cross into another branch of service, had to take a pay grade cut, but I made all of that back up, and I retired as an E7. So, in the Air Guard, it teaches you, well, like I said, discipline. Well, I know I've worked with people in my lifetime where, you know, if you're supposed to be out there at 8 o'clock, well, they come in at 8:15 or 8:20, and it drives me crazy. When you're supposed to be at a certain place at a certain time, you're supposed to be there and doing that. That's all. I guess that's part of my military, I guess. Yeah. It's a big family. It's like a family, and how it was for me. I know when I retired out of the Guard, it was a family. I know the 185th, it was like a family.